Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Please be seated in the courtroom. When we recessed, the witness had been passed for cross-examination, so I'll ask the defense to proceed, please.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Ms. Hale, last time we left, the day before yesterday, the jury left the room, and then now they're back today, and so I kind of want to go through a few things. I think the first thing I want to talk about, though, is just you weren't there when we picked the jury, but we asked them if they gave us permission to ask tough questions of witnesses that are like you, have gone through trauma, have gone through tragedy. And so I just want you to know that we've asked them if we could do that, and every one of them there has agreed that we
I
could.
object to being outside the record, not proper for this witness to respond to.
Well, it's just that I'm about to go into some difficult stuff.
Okay, well, go ahead and ask a question, then I'll overrule the objection. Go ahead, proceed.
Yes, Your Honor. May I approach the witness?
Yes.
Ms. Hale, you and I have gone through that statement that you made to the ranger, and we talked about that, and I played it for you the last time that we were here together.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to play the statement that.
All right, you may proceed.
And Ms. Hale, just to center it, this was a statement that was taken 4 days later when you were being interviewed by the ranger about your experience and what happened that day at Robb Elementary. Is that right?
Yes.
.58 p.m. on Saturday, May 28, 2022. This is Texas Ranger Josh Wilkinson. I'm here with Special Agent of the FBI, Sean Curtis, and we're here today interviewing Ms. Zook. You correct your now. Zook. I'm sorry, Ms. Zook. Hell, it's now Hell or it was Hell?
No, it's not Hell.
Now Hell. Okay, so Mrs. Hell. And so what I'll do, ma'am, and your first name is Stephanie, correct?
Yes.
And it's Stephanie.
Yes.
Okay. Hell. And your date of birth, ma'am?
5693.
No, you're fine. You're fine. All right. And what's a good contact number for you, ma'am?
830-688-6856.
6. All right. All right. So as I discussed just a moment ago, I'm just going to have you kind of walk us through from start to finish, what you remember.
I picked up my students from the 4th grade building at the library. I was before that, I guess I was in room, I think it's 130, with an interventionist. We were going through her manipulatives since she's retiring. So I was a little late picking up my kids, but the librarian had them outside because I'm usually very early. So I walked out around, I'm going to say 11:26 or 27
Okay.
with my students. And we headed to the playground, with playground B is what we call it. As we were walking over there, I heard a loud boom, what sounded like a dumpster truck picking up trash. And so I get there very early, so I know that they do that in the morning, and I thought that was strange. Looked around, didn't see anything. We get to the playground, and I had just gotten to the little bench where I watch my students, and I heard two sounded like fireworks, and I again looked around. I was like, that's weird. There was a coach leaving to, I guess, have lunch, and I saw him turn around as well, and he has the campus radios, and I guess he heard something over the radio because I saw him pick it up, and then he just started running towards the gate. At that time, I knew something was wrong, so I told my students, like, run, let's go. We were pretty far from our classroom, so we went into a 2nd grade classroom where I was in there. Miss Wally ended up in there, and I don't know the other teacher's name off the top of my head since we just integrated campuses. But we were in the first room on wing D, closest to the playground.
Is that room 9?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, if I have a map.
Yeah, that's fine.
We were in Miss Rodriguez's room, so room 19.
19. Okay.
That's where we ended up, me, Miss Rodriguez, and Miss Wally. I only ended up with 4 of my students in there with me. And the rest of them were in other classrooms here on this wing as well. Wing D.
Okay.
Once we got in there, we secured the room. Her kids were watching a movie. They paused it. They got under the desk. My kids huddled in the back behind one of her circle tables. The students kind of didn't take it seriously. I mean, they did, but they didn't because we've had so many bailouts lately that they thought, oh, here we go again. It's just another bailout. I didn't receive the alert through Raptor system until I was already in the classroom and secured.
Okay.
So if I would have waited until we got a Raptor system alert, we would have been outside like the whole, pretty much for a while. So we were in the classroom and I got a text message saying that, because my husband works with the volunteer fire department here and he has a radio. So he said, don't go outside, there's something serious happening. But he wouldn't tell me what. And then a few minutes later, he said, there's a active shooter. Don't go outside, don't open the door to anybody, those sort of things.
And so you learned of the active shooter situation from your husband?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what's his name?
Tristan Hale. And then at that time, I was like, hey, I just told the other teachers, like, hey, there's somebody on the campus with a gun. We need to get the kids into the back of the room more secure. The teacher whose room we went into, she was unsure if her door was locked or not. So Miss Wally and her got, I don't know if it was an extension cord or a piece of rope that they tied off the door while I'm huddled in the back with the kids, making sure that they're getting down and stuff. The second graders started getting a little, I don't want to call it hysterical, but they were crying. So I'm crawling around the floor, teaching them breathing treatments on like strategies, how to calm their crying so that way they weren't making a lot of noise. At one point, the teacher, Miss Rodriguez, handed me a pair of scissors to defend ourselves if we needed to, or the best we could anyway. And we waited, and then we heard a knock on the door. We did not answer. And then a few minutes later, another knock on the door where that's when I don't know if it was a state trooper or border patrol, they told us that we were going to exit the room and we were going to run to the parking lot. So we got all the kids out and we just sprinted to the car parking lot. I think we were the first class out. And we got there, we huddled behind a car. These poor students, they were all carrying their scissors too, because I guess they saw us happen. So I went around and collected them and put them in my back pocket. And then we walked over to this empty field and stood with some trees. At this time, I walked up closer to the parking lot. So because I was worried about my other students and having my class together, because I wanted to make sure they also got out of the classrooms. Once I had my class all together, counted, made sure everybody was there, we got on a bus and went to the Civic Center.
Okay. Do you recall approximately what time you left to go to the Civic Center? I know timeline's probably a little shaky.
I have it on my phone.
That's fine. Yeah, if you just want to just kind of look at it and
I have
kind of
the
rough
Life
timeline.
360 app, and it actually told me when I left the campus. But
No, you're fine. It don't have to be perfect. It's just approximation.
I left the campus at 12:21
12:21.
is when I said I left it. And
Okay.
then I got to Civic Center at around 12:40.
Okay. And I'm not familiar with the Raptor system. Is that something that's on your phone or?
It's
Okay.
a alert system where teachers can call in alerts, admin, outside neighbors, police departments, they can send it and it comes to our phones.
Is that something that's kind of protocol set up to where they should have notified? Or is that something y'all kind of put your heads together on and just try to?
We just started using it at I don't know if it was the beginning of the year or right around the beginning of the year. So we've only been using it this year.
Okay.
But it just sends us notifications rather than it coming over the intercom and saying, hey, we're on lockdown, or giving a code word or something like that.
Okay. And I know you've kind of brushed it a little bit, but what is the policy on the school regarding locked doors?
They do have to be locked all the time.
Okay, and that's for every building or, okay. And do each of you have keys individually to access in and out of the
Yes.
building? Okay, so you don't,
I mean, I do have them. I think everybody does.
okay,
For sure.
all right. Do you know if someone has I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
Oh.
Okay. Do you know if someone has a master key, and if so, who would be the holder of the master key?
There are a couple people, the principal, assistant principal, counselor, the front office staff, Miss Jeanette has a pair, and the custodians.
Okay, so quite a few people then. Okay. Okay, you've already answered that one. And so is there any protocol on what y'all do during an active shooter situation?
We make sure the door's locked, cover windows, the windows on the door. We huddle in some sort of secured area in the classroom, so.
Okay. To your knowledge, were there any issues with any of the doors, both exterior and interior doors, that they were having issues with locks or anything of that nature? To where the doors weren't locking like they needed to or anything of that
I
nature?
know that there's an ACE room, and this lady just started, I don't even know her name, but there's an ACE room in the 4th grade building that does not lock. It, because there were teachers in there last year that I knew, and it doesn't lock.
Okay.
I'm not sure why, but it doesn't. And then the ACE room is right next to the room where I was at. Oh, it's right here. But
And that's
it's 131 actually. that it's
131?
locked,
Okay.
yeah. But as far as like exterior doors to enter buildings, no. I always only come through, I don't even have to go through doors. I just come through the parking lot to my classroom most of the time.
Okay. And so with 131, are there any students that are typically taught in 131, or is that just kind of a spare room?
I think it's a spare room because it's the after-school program. I think maybe that they have speech in there sometimes. I know my students go to 132 for speech during the week.
Okay. And does 132 conjoin with 131? Do you know?
I've never been in the classrooms.
Okay.
But I think the buildings in the 4th grade have that door in
In the classroom itself?
that leads to the other classroom.
Okay. Okay. Do you know if it's common practice at all by teachers or students to prop doors open or anything of that nature?
Like, do we do it often, or
Yeah,
is it done? I mean,
Yes.
I feel like we've all done it at some point because we are by ourselves most of the time, and if we're trying to bring items into the school, especially if they're heavy or awkward to hold, I mean, we've all done it, so,
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, we're not supposed to, obviously, but, I mean.
But it happens
Yeah,
through
it
just,
happens.
through daily, like you said, care. It makes sense that you would
But our
have to.
custodian is Jaime, he's very religiously locks and make sure the gates are locked whenever everybody comes in, the doors, and he's always going around making sure that they are locked, the exterior doors.
Okay. On the, say you have an issue with a door handle, it's having issues with locking it. Do y'all keep is there any type of records that are kept on reporting it, or is it more like word of mouth? You go to Jaime and say, hey, there's this issue with this door, and
Because it will get done faster that way, yeah, that's pretty much.
more word of mouth?
We either go to the front office and say, hey, this is happening, or we let him know whenever we see him pass on campus. I don't know of any reporting, like, document that we have to fill out. I know there is probably one on the district website for major things like ACs and whatnot. But yeah, word of mouth pretty much.
Okay. With that, would that come in an email directly to Jaime, or is it more of you actually approach Jaime and tell him what you
We
have?
would usually
approach
approach him.
Okay. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you think's important, or that you feel is pertinent to this?
I don't think so, no.
Okay. Sean, anything you think of?
I have two, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go
So when you said that when you all were in the play area and you ran into Ms. Rodriguez's classroom, you said you only had 4
My
of your students?
Yes.
Did you have 4 students going in the play area B?
No, I had 10.
And then is it just the assumption that they just found?
Oh, I stood out and I did not go into the actual classroom until every student was inside of the classroom.
Gotcha.
I was
Okay.
standing
I'm
at the door, making sure, and I checked the playground, and then once I didn't see any kids, shut the door behind me.
Okay.
And then my second question, when you said someone from, it was either Border Patrol or some agency came in, did they and get you to evacuate to the parking lot? Was that, did they get to you through a window,
Through a door
through the front door?
of the classroom.
Okay. Do we know how they entered?
We opened it.
Oh,
Yes.
okay, gotcha.
After they said Border Patrol and Miss Wally looked through the, to kind of remove the stuff a little bit, just to make sure. Just because we were hearing, because I'm in a large group text with people from Uvalde saying that they were starting to evacuate kids. And so we just checked, I guess. We were not supposed to, but after you identified it,
Yeah, check to make sure. Well, I'm glad. Do you have any others?
No, that was my two.
I'm glad you brought that up. Regarding the locked doors, are you able to lock them from the inside of the classroom, so they have to be locked from the outside?
and then
Okay.
you can only lock it with a key.
Okay. Is there a reason why they have it structured that way? But no, it's just how it is.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay. Okay.
In the old school, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, you cannot lock it from the inside.
Okay. All right. Anything else you can think of based on any of the follow-up questions he just had and that one that I just asked you?
Not necessarily, no.
Okay. All right. Would you be okay if something comes up in the future, we learn something additional, if we reach out to you and
Sure.
follow up? Perfect. Well, I appreciate your time today, Ms. Hale, and we'll let you get out of here. We'll get your property real quick and
Okay.
let you go out of here. And we'll conclude the interview at this time, Ian Hill, at 1:15 p.m. on Saturday, May 28th, 2022.
Right back for a switch. Yes, sir.
With your permission, Judge, I'm gonna move this easel to make it illustrative.
Go right ahead.
Ms. Hale, as, just to kind of go back to what we were talking about the day before yesterday. When Mr. Turner was here and he was questioning you, part of the things that you told the jury was that you saw a person dressed in black with long hair and a long rifle when you were out from the playground going into the room. Is that right?
Yes.
You also said that this person, Mr. Turner showed you this map. And you said that this person that you saw was on the south side area, I guess on the sidewalk next to the south entrance,
Closer to the parking lot.
closer to here.
Mhm.
Okay. And but I guess you would agree that he was, person that you saw, you told Mr. Turner he was completely on the south side,
I'm sorry.
on that south side.
Yes, and I was pointing with the pointer.
Right. And just so I can be clear, I mean, this is the south side here, and you were pointing at this
Yes.
area. And you also told Mr. Turner that when you were on the playground, there was like dust that was kicking up, that you put two and two together and realized you were being shot at.
Correct.
Okay. And then I think Mr. Turner at that point said, so if anybody were to say that there was no evidence that you were being shot at, or the shots were coming in your direction on the playground, they would be wrong, and you agreed with him on that. You remember that? Actually, I objected.
I
to
do
leaving.
remember answering yes, but I mean, that's not my job to prove it.
I understand.
Okay.
I understand. And really what I'm doing is I need to go back through what we talked about before we talk about your statement to the ranger. Okay, so when we heard that statement, we talked about the fact that it was, and I can back up and go sit down. You would agree with me that in that statement that you gave to the ranger 4 days later, 4 days after this happened, you made no mention of anybody dressed in black carrying a rifle or with long hair. You agree with that?
Correct.
And you would agree that you also didn't say anything about piles of dirt being kicked up on the playground.
Yes.
And since you didn't say anything about a person in black, you didn't say anything about seeing him on that south side of the building to the ranger.
Yes.
Now, those would all be important details. You would agree?
Yes.
And I think when hearing the ranger, as he interviewed you, you were given multiple opportunities to say whatever you knew or whatever you remembered about what happened, and honestly, the traumatic, tragic thing that happened to you 4 days before. You were given the opportunity to say anything that you heard.
Yes.
And then I want to talk in particular, when you came from the playground with your kids, you had 4 kids at the time, and I think you said total to the ranger that you went to the playground with 10 students.
Yes.
So how many students did you have total normally?
About 22.
About 22. And I think we talked about that. So, and I think the day before yesterday, you said that you thought you had 12 and 10 had gone home, but it seems like you had 10 and 12 had gone.
I said it was about 10 to 12.
Sure. And which is fine. I mean, that's not the same kind of detail as seeing a person with a gun. You would agree with that?
Correct.
Okay. So, but regardless, it seems like more than half of your students had left after the awards ceremony.
Yes.
Or perhaps, and I don't know, because maybe you remember or not, that perhaps they didn't come at all to school that day because they were sick or on vacation, something else was going on.
Possibly.
Possibly. And I would expect you to remember the attendance, of all the students and who was there originally in the morning and things like that. But
One of the things you told the ranger when you got into the room, from the playground, you get into the room, that you had second graders, right?
Yes, I went into a second grade classroom.
Got it. And your kids, and I'm sorry, I just forgot, your kids, were they in third grade?
Third grade, yes.
All right. Because one of the things you said, you specifically talked about the second graders. And you said the second graders, they weren't taking it seriously. And the word you used was, here we go again, it's just another bailout. Do you remember saying that?
Yes, I remember referencing the bailout.
Yes. And so could you tell us, because that, I guess that phenomenon or that experience is common to Uvalde, but may not be common in other places. So could you tell us what you were referencing when you referenced that?
When an illegal person, I guess, comes over and bails out of their vehicle or whatever they're in and is around, I guess, running around town possibly, there could be possible danger. So we would go on lockdown.
Right. And thank you for explaining that. And, you know, and I do want to tell you this too. I think you deserve a lot of credit for acting on your own when you saw the coach running in. Because one of the things you said is you didn't get the raptor alert. If you would have waited out there for the raptor alert, you would have been out there with those kids. And I will agree, if you had waited, then that shooter would have been near or around in that area. But and I think you doing that saved your kids' lives, honestly. So you do get credit for that, and we appreciate that. But getting in the classroom and now talking about those bailouts, illegal. We talk about illegal, but people who are undocumented that come over, and I guess it was a common thing at that time in Uvalde. It was a common thing that these bailouts would happen, where there would be some sort of accident or wreck or some criminal activity or something that would cause people to bail out, and it would cause schools to go on lockdown, like yours, if it happened, I guess, in your area.
Correct.
And I don't know if you know this, but since you were a teacher there for that year, and you were a teacher there in like February to May, there's some estimate that there was about 50 bailouts.
Objection, Your Honor, back outside the record.
Well, I'm asking if she knows.
You can answer if you know, ma'am. I'll overrule the objection.
About 50 bailouts from that February and May time period. And the reason I'm asking if you know is because some of those bailouts would be causing the schools to go on lockdown, right?
I'm unsure of how many there were.
But there were a lot.
I mean, it depends on how you or what you consider a lot. I don't know.
I guess I'll ask what you consider a lot. Did it seem like you were having to lock down for bailouts a lot?
Not an excessive amount, but enough to be noticed.
Right. And I think that's why when you talk to the ranger, here we go again, it's just another bailout, right? Those are the words that you use.
That the kids said, yes.
That the kids said, okay, the words.
I believe so, yes.
Right. The words that you used to the ranger about what the kids said, right?
Yes.
So there are second graders going, here we go again, it's just another bailout at the time, right?
Correct.
Now, you also told the ranger that you were safe. Well, I mean, nobody was safe, but you were at least in the classroom and kind of had started barricading when you got a text message from your husband.
Correct. In the statement, it says that.
Right. And in the text message, you said at first, because he's a volunteer firefighter, you said at first he told you there was something going on, and he's warning his wife, which any husband would. He's worried about her. He's telling you, be careful, like be aware something's going on, because he was hearing, I guess, something over a police scanner or something else. Is that?
Yes.
All
Or
right.
he was on the phone. I don't know.
Sure. And then you told the ranger that after that you got a text message from him saying that there was an active shooter.
That's what I said at the time, yes.
That's what you said at the time. And that was a true statement, what you said at the time.
What I thought to be or what I remembered to be at the time, I was still in shock. You could hear it in my voice.
No, absolutely. And you were, but there were, let's talk about some of those details. Your husband, you were communicating with your husband inside the classroom.
Correct.
And you knew enough to say that he told you that that there was an active shooter. And then the officer or the ranger asked you, so that's how you found out there was an active shooter from your husband, and you agreed with him. You heard that.
Yes. I don't know. Can I speak?
Well, so the prosecution is going to get an opportunity to ask you questions after, but at this point, and I know it may be hard, but I have to ask the questions, and I'm just asking for the answers to the questions I'm asking. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So when you, 4 days after this had happened, and you sat down with the ranger, and he said, based on that text from your husband, that's how you found out there was an active shooter, and you agreed with him. Is that correct?
Based on that statement, yes.
Yes. And that's what I'm asking, what we've heard in the statement.
Yes.
The, as far as I want to talk about the sound, because there was also things that you said in that statement that you also said here and you testified to. You talked about the scissors. You had the scissors, children had the scissors. Maybe in mimicking you or trying to do what they could as well. And that, you said that in the statement and you also testified, correct?
Yes.
And you were in shock back then, but you remembered that detail and you talked to the ranger about it after it.
Correct.
I also think that you talked to him about the cord, I guess maybe an extension cord or rope that was being thrown over the top of the door to prevent the door from being able to be opened. You talked to the ranger about that and you told him about that detail.
Yes.
Even though you were obviously, and of course you had gone through that traumatic event, that's a detail that you remember.
Yes.
You told him about hearing the sound like a dumpster truck. And the last time you and I were here, we talked about that, about what that sounds like. And would you agree, I guess it sounds something like metal being slammed down on concrete,
Yes.
like a huge metal on concrete.
Yes.
Now, you know now that the shooter wrecked into that culvert. I guess that concrete culvert that's, if you kind of go out the front of the school and past that field, there's a fence and then there's that concrete culvert. And you know now that the shooter wrecked into that culvert.
Yes.
Okay, so what I want to ask is now knowing that the shooter wrecked into that culvert, meaning flew off the road and slammed down into the culvert, is that consistent or similar? The truck doing that, a metal part doing that, is that consistent or similar with the sound that you heard of the dumpster truck?
Possibly, yes.
Right, because it would involve the same type of action that you were talking about, which is heavy metal being slammed down on the concrete.
Yes.
And then you said in your statement to the ranger, you said after that you heard two fireworks, like two fireworks. Pop, pop. What it sounded like to you.
Correct.
Do you know now that after the shooter wrecked into the culvert, he took shots at the people who were coming out to the culvert to help him?
Yes.
All right. And so is that consistent, hearing the dumpster truck slam into the concrete or hearing the dumpster truck sound that you heard, but then hearing the fireworks sound, is that consistent with what you know now, that after the wreck into the culvert, the shooter was shooting at people who were trying to help him?
Yes.
But you did not tell the ranger 4 days after this incident that you heard any other shots or any other fireworks sounds but those two.
I'm sorry?
In this statement, you did not tell the ranger at the time, 4 days after the incident, that you heard any other fireworks sound other than those two, the two fireworks sounds that you heard.
No.
And when the coach, you told the ranger that the coach, I guess what you did was you observed the coach on his radio, because the coaches, I guess, have radios.
Yes.
Okay, teachers don't typically. Right?
No.
The coaches have radios, and you said you observed them. What you told the ranger was that you saw him saying or hearing something on the radio, but then you saw him tell the kids to run, and he started running.
I saw his face, yes, and then him moving quickly.
Right, and I'm sure seeing his face, you saw alarm, concern, fear.
Yes.
Right, and I'll go back to that, and intelligently on your part, you assessed the situation, saw the fear on the coach, saw him running, and you took your kids and you got them out of there, right?
Correct.
But you didn't tell the ranger that you heard the coach saying anything, like there was something, whatever was going on. You just observed it, and you followed your instincts and your training, and you ran with your kids and tried to get them to a safe place.
Yes. I mean, he could have been yelling something. Now he was saying get inside, but I guess I just blocked it out at the time whenever I gave my statement.
Well, I'm not, there's something like that. To me, whether you did hear something or not, the point I really wanted to make was that you were able to assess danger and get your kids to safety based on on the observations that you were making. That's what you told the ranger at the time.
Yes.
Which again, we're glad that you did. And and at the point that you were talking to the ranger, you knew that the person, the monster responsible for doing this to these children, you knew that person was dead.
I'm sorry?
The monster responsible for doing what he did to these children and hurting these children, you knew that he was dead when you talked to the ranger.
Yes.
Right. And you understood that the purpose for you giving the ranger information, the reason they were talking to all of you.
Object to assuming what's in the ranger's mind. I said something you couldn't possibly know.
Okay, if you'll rephrase it, I'll sustain the objection.
Okay. I want to talk about what's in your mind, right? In your mind, when you're going to sit down with the ranger after something like this has happened, that you were a witness to part of this, in your mind, you understood that you were sitting there to give information as part of an investigation into what happened.
Yes.
Right. And in your mind, you knew that it was important to tell the ranger everything of any significance that you saw or experienced during that time.
Could you repeat the question? Sorry.
No, it's okay. You knew and understood while you were sitting with the ranger that it was important for you, just like everybody, I'm sure, who sat with any law enforcement after this happened, you knew and understood that it was important to tell the ranger, to tell this person any relevant information that you knew about what you experienced.
I knew that it was mandatory and a requirement. Yes. But
Let me ask you this, right? Even if it wasn't mandatory, even if you weren't required to do it, you would have sat down and talked to them about it. You would have participated in the investigation.
if I had to,
Well,
if it was not mandatory, I would not have gone.
because it's hard to talk about. It's
Yes.
traumatic. I understand. But I think on balance, ultimately, you would know that it's important that they go through this investigation, and try to find out what happened, how it happened, and to try to prevent it from happening again.
Correct.
And so we do appreciate that you did participate in the investigation.
An hour later, I guess after you spoke to the ranger, you came in and testified to the grand jury?
An hour later?
No, later,
Oh,
after. Because it wasn't an hour later.
Yeah,
It was years later.
yes.
Years later, you sat down and testified to a grand jury. And in your grand jury testimony, you did say, I don't know if you've seen it, but you were there, but you did say that you saw clouds of dust. You didn't say it to the ranger, but you said it to the grand jury. Did you know that?
Yes.
But you never said to the grand jury that you saw anybody dressed in black with long hair carrying a long gun. Did you know that you also did not say that to the grand jury years later when you were in it?
Yes, I just heard him say it up there or somewhere. Maybe we talked on the phone, but yes.
Sure. So, and then, I guess in December of 2024, so, no, I'm sorry, 2025, we're in 2026 now. In December, which probably close to a month ago, came in and talked to the prosecutors. And there, for the first time, if you understand it, you gave them a description
Yes, from what I can recall.
of a man in black on the south, well, did you tell them he was on the south side of the building?
They didn't ask when I didn't say because I'm not very great with directions.
So, right, and I'll tell you what, I'm not either. Judge Mayor, first witness?
Yes.
I'm not either, but I think that's why they have these. This is the south, and I'm not asking you to be great, west, south. Did they, in their interview with you, did they ask you to point to a part of the map where you saw this person?
Not that I remember.
Okay, and you said that they didn't ask at all.
Not that I remember. So I would have answered it or asked to show. I mean, they might have, I don't know, but I don't remember telling them where.
But you understand now that that would have been in December, that would have been the first time that anybody involved in this case would have heard you say that you described somebody that looked like the shooter.
Yes, but from what I have in my memory, I said it during the grand jury. I thought that I did.
It turns out that you did not. But I think ultimately what I want to be clear on is when you spoke, are you saying that when you spoke to these people and you said for the first time that you saw the shooter, that not one person in that room asked you where he was?
From what I recall, I don't remember being asked where or to show. I don't remember.
And I guess, and you also know that information was never given to us.
Now I know that, yes.
So, and I'll tell you, that's not on you, it's not your job, right? Just like you said, your job's not to do the investigation, obviously. You're a witness, you're a victim, just like everybody there that was at that school that day. Were you aware, or did you know, because the ranger was asking you questions about the locks at the school. And you said, yeah, sometimes we're alone, or, we prop it open, I know we're not supposed to. And just so we can be clear, I mean, nobody's alleging you had anything to do with an unlocked door at any place in the school, first of all, right? That has nothing to do with you. But I'm asking more about the past, were you ever aware of the school district officials, like the principals, the administration, issuing magnets to teachers that would defeat the door locks?
No.
Okay. Did you, and what I mean by that is, I guess, were you aware of any teachers or substitute teachers using magnets instead of keys to cover up the part where the door would lock so that the door could be open?
Possibly, but I don't think that the school district gave them the magnets for that purpose.
Okay. And so, as far as, I think what I hear you say is, as far as you know, as far as you're
I don't.
aware, you don't know that they were doing that.
Yes.
You said possibly, is that something, I'm just trying to explore, is that something that you had seen before? Have you seen these magnets being used in that way at the school?
I've heard of people doing it. Yes. I've never physically seen any other teacher at that school do it.
Okay, right, but you heard of it as a practice with some teachers, but you hadn't personally witnessed it or seen teachers do it. Do I have that right?
Correct.
Judge, I'll pass it.
Redirect. Thank you. I just want to be a little bit more specific on information provided to the defense.
Okay.
Okay. Of the three things that are up there, saw clouds of dust. You told the grand jury about that,
Yes.
and that was provided to the defense.
Correct.
And you were also asked where the shooter was. Is that correct? Where the shots were coming from? Is that correct?
Here today?
No,
Or
in
when?
front of the grand jury.
I don't remember.
Would you like to refresh your memory?
Please.
May I approach your honor?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it says on there.
And so were you asked where the shots were coming from?
Yes.
And did you tell the grand jury?
Yes.
And was that provided to the defense?
Yes.
But you were not asked how the shooter was dressed. Is that correct?
Correct.
In front of the grand jury?
No. Well, I don't believe so. Not in that part that I just read.
Now I want to go back to the questioning that's been occurring. Today's question has been very specific. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes. Sorry.
In front of the grand jury, was it very specific?
Not like this, but I don't know. It's a little more specific here.
And with the Rangers, did they just simply ask you to tell them what you knew?
Yes.
Were you conducting the investigation?
No.
Did you know what was specifically important to them?
No. I didn't think that what I had to say was as
So they asked you to explain what happened? Is that
They
correct?
did, yes.
And you told them?
Yes.
And when they asked you, is anything else important, did you know what was important to them?
No. I was ready to get out of there.
Was it your job to know what was important to
That
them?
was subjective leading.
I'll overrule the objection. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Was it
No.
important for you to know what was important to law enforcement?
No, it's not my job.
And now I want to go back to those events if we could, okay?
Okay.
You hear a sound, did you hear a sound?
Yes.
And did you attribute it to something that you were familiar with?
Yes.
And what was that?
The dumpster.
And now Mr. Goss's questioning very well could have been a wreck instead, correct?
Yes.
So you attributed it to something you were familiar with.
Correct.
Then you hear what you found for firecrackers.
Yes.
So you hear a sound
Yes.
attributed to something you're familiar with.
Correct.
And according to Mr. Goss, now that very well could have been gunfire at another human being, correct?
Correct.
And then you have a coach, correct?
Correct.
That tells you to, or what is your testimony? Did he tell you to go and lock down, or what, did he say anything to you?
I don't remember if he said anything. I just saw his face and I saw him pull up the radio and
But at that time,
I knew.
I believe you said to Mr. Goss that you were thinking bailout.
No, when I got into the classroom, the kids said that they were not taking it seriously because of all the bailouts.
Okay.
But I didn't think that it was a bailout,
Oh, it's
like
fine.
based on the coach's face, I guess, and
Okay.
everything.
All right,
That never, I guess, crossed my mind.
very good. Thank you.
Absolutely. Just look briefly, thank you, Judge. The prosecutor asked you out of the three things on here, and we talked about it, that you did say that there was clouds of dust to the grand jury years later, but not at the time, right?
Correct.
So the three things, these two things were not given to the defense, and you understand that.
Yes, I do now.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what the last question was. It may be important.
Oh.
Did you say?
I said, oh, the three things, the two things, you said the three things on the board, I said, oh, those three things, those two things weren't given to the defense. One and two.
Okay, I just want to make sure I heard that.
And just because Mr. Turner asked you, was it important to you to know if it's important to law enforcement? And you said it's not your job, and I agree with you. It's their job, right? But you agree that seeing a man with a gun on your campus is an important detail that you would recognize instantly that you would need to talk about.
I mean, I know that now, yes.
Well, and you would have known that then.
Possibly.
Because I think what you were saying when he was talking was is you didn't think that what the information you were providing was, in the scheme of things, I guess very important. I didn't hear you because you were talking.
Yes, I didn't think that what I had to say was very important. I didn't think that it mattered based on or compared to everything else.
I understand, but seeing a shooter and being shot at are important details. You would agree with that?
I mean, it depends on who you are. I don't know, I guess. Possibly.
I'll pass.
Just one more question, Your Honor. Of the three things, Mr. Goss has agreed that you did tell the grand jury it was provided to them that they saw clouds of dust on the playground, correct?
Yes.
But he said that you did not, or the information was not provided, and you did not say before that you saw the person on the south side of the building. Is that correct?
Correct.
But you were asked that question from the
Yes,
grand jury,
I
weren't
just
you?
read that. Yes, sorry.
And would you tell us what you told the grand jury?
Yes, it was towards obviously the building indicating. So I'm guessing I was pointing at that time or something. At that point, the coach had yelled, "Hey, get in the room."
No further than that. I'll just the whole point. So the specific question was asked where, and you said obviously toward the building, and then it says indicated, so you pointed to something. Is that correct?
Yes.
So that information was provided to the grand jury
Yes. Sorry.
and the defense.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, Judge. All right. I'm sorry. I don't want to do this to you. I'm sorry he keeps doing it. Saw this person on south side of building, and I'm not irritated with you. It's them. Saw this person on south side of building. Now, what you just read from the grand jury, you agree with me. You never told the grand jury that you saw the person on the south side of the building, however he's trying to make it seem. You would agree with that?
Yes.
Shots coming from a location is not, I saw this person on the south side of the building. You would agree with that as well?
Yes, but wouldn't it be? I don't know. It's kind of implied.
You're saying that it's kind of implied, but it's this phrase right here, I saw a shooter and he was on the south side of the building. That was never said to the grand jury or at any other time, except in December when you told the prosecutors and they didn't tell us.
Yeah.
Pass it.
No further questions.
Okay, ma'am, would you do me a favor, if you'll go with the bailiff momentarily, don't leave, and we'll call you back in shortly. Members of the jury, I'm gonna give your recess a little early. Take 15 minutes, and remember my instructions, would everyone rise for the jury?
Rise for the jury.
Be seated in court, please. All right, let the record reflect we're outside the presence of the jury. The witness has completed the testimony. Where are we at on motions?
Yes, Your Honor. After considering the testimony of the witness, we are asking the court to avail us, the defense, of the remedy of instructing the jury that they cannot consider her testimony at all for any purpose in its entirety. The failure to turn over the specific that specific piece of critical evidence has put us into a disadvantage with this witness, has put us to a disadvantage with our theory, as I've kind of outlined to the court in the ex parte brief that I provided. And we do not believe that, again, the court has denied the mistrial, but we do not believe that that allowing the jury to consider her testimony for any purpose, we believe that it'll affect the due process rights of the defendant and our ability to continue in the defense of the case in the way that we had set it up and prepared for in the first place.
State.
Yes, Your Honor. The accusation yesterday was significant. It gave us significant pause. The three very important things were left out. Number one, the shots flaring up around her. Number two, where the shooter was. And number three, the clothing that he was wearing. That gave us significant pause. But lo and behold, yesterday, we're able to find out they did actually have the information about the shots being fired up and behind her. The evidence has been developed today that they did actually have the evidence that she said that the shots, I agree, not the gunman, but the shots came from the building and then indicated. So they do have information that she was aware of where the shots were coming from. That does leave, though, Your Honor, still that disturbing point about the clothing not being turned over. We agree that is improper. We should have done it because it was new information. Didn't seem all that significant since we had photographs of the shooter in black. But nonetheless, we believe, number one, it has all been cured through cross-examination. He's pointed out that she didn't say it originally. The jury is aware of the truthful nature of her conduct all the way, and they weren't ready and prepared to do that. It has not caught them off guard as of now because of the court granting a continuance. Second of all, Your Honor, we believe that if the court does believe some kind of measure is appropriate, we ask the court not to throw the baby out with the bathwater, and that is the only surprise that they're addressing is the black hair and the gun, and it would be appropriate if the court feels like that caught them off guard and has affected their defense to instruct the jury not to consider that portion of the testimony.
Your Honor, may I respond? Because I feel like I'm getting gaslit with this clothing thing. That is not the issue about black clothes. It is the fact that she said that she saw a man who matched the description of the shooter with a gun. That's
And a gun.
That's the key issue. It's not his clothing or the fact we know that he was wearing black. And ultimately, I think what the defense, what the prosecution doesn't know about the defense strategy, the court does know. There's things that we could have done and investigations we could have made.
Mr. Goss, I've heard enough. Again, Mr. Turner, you don't have the benefit of the ex parte brief that Mr. Goss filed, and I think you'll probably gleaned issues from the arguments, but there's no doubt that this was critical to the strategy. And I don't think I have any choice, having denied the mistrial, other than to craft a remedy that will protect the due process rights and hopefully avoid any appellate review that would result in this case being reversed. So I am reluctantly going to instruct the jury to disregard her testimony in its entirety when they come back out. If we could bring her back in momentarily, the witness. Ma'am, could you come up to the bench here very quickly? We're going to let you go here in a minute. I hate to talk to people from the bench. You know, you don't have to sit down, just right here. I just want to tell you, you may hear later on that I will instruct the jury to disregard your testimony, but I want to emphasize to you, you did absolutely nothing wrong. It is not on you. And I want to tell you just from personal experience, memories of traumatic events change, are different, or you recall more or less. I had a personal experience many years ago. My wife and I were hit by a drunk driver, and I spent 2 months in the hospital. Apparently they almost lost me in the emergency room, but revived me. And I remember that event very clearly, that truck coming at us and trying to get out of the way. But every time I think about it, it's a little different. And that's because of stress and trauma. So nothing about this is on you. We appreciate your bravery that day, and we appreciate your testimony and being brave enough to come in here, and you are excused with our thanks. Take care. All right, we're going to take the rest of the recess till the jury comes back out. So I think they got about 5 more minutes or so. We're in recess.
Well, that sounds about right. I knew that was gonna happen, but the thing is that the jury is not gonna forget that stuff. Whatever. So we do have TiVo time, so I will pull us past this part, guys, just so y'all are aware. So we won't have to worry about that. And that's the one good thing about having this TiVo time, right?
Stephanie Hale and her testimony.
Oh, he done wrote it on his phone. All right.
Outside your presence. So listen carefully to this instruction, if you would, ladies and gentlemen. We have just heard testimony, as you know, from the witness, Stephanie Hale. The court, outside your presence, after a hearing mandated by law, has ruled that the witness's testimony will be and must be excluded as a matter of law. Therefore, you are instructed to disregard any and all testimony provided by Stephanie Hale, and her testimony will play no role in your analysis, deliberations, and decision in this case. With this instruction, you are reminded that you are bound by your oath as a juror to follow the ruling of the court as provided. So please remember, ladies and gentlemen, mandated by law, don't speculate about it, don't wonder about it, don't hold it against either side, just follow my instruction. All right. Good morning.